August 23rd, 2023 was a pretty monumental day in space history. It's the day India became only the 4th country ever to land on the moon, and the first to land near the moon's unexplored South Pole. Between that and the 50th anniversary re-release of the Pink Floyd classic, you might say it was a pretty big year for the dark side of the moon. Hello! I'm Dr. Eric Stribling with ASU's Interplanetary Initiative, and this is Space for Humans. More than 70 million people watched on YouTube as the Chandrayaan-3 mission successfully touched down before releasing its lunar rover, named Pragyan after the Hindu word for wisdom. The rover ambled down onto the surface and carefully drove around a dangerous crater, becoming the first robot ever to explore the lunar south and establishing India as an emerging power in the new global space race. And that's exciting for many reasons. India is a young democracy with a fast-growing economy, still forging its future in the aftermath of colonial rule. One small spin for the Pragyan rover on the lunar south is also one giant leap for the global south. Following in the footsteps of the Chandrayaan-3 mission, NASA's Artemis 3 mission hopes to land the first humans on the moon's south pole in 2025. And there's a reason the 21st century space race is targeting this spot. And it has to do with one very important resource. You might recognize it as the building blocks of a certain Disney Queen's castle, a rap song from 1990 that slices like a ninja, or just the comforting clink against the glass of lemonade on a hot summer day. That's right! Ice. Ice would be an incredibly valuable resource to mine from these shadowed moon craters, providing both water and oxygen to future manned missions. Think of the moon as a potential pit stop for astronauts before continuing on to Mars. You know, somewhere to refill the tanks and grab an icy. The way we talk about global powers racing each other to claim untapped resources like lunar ice is a perfect example of how the legacy of colonialism continues to shape space exploration. It affects both the soaring rhetoric and its everyday practice. Think back to the original space race between the former Soviet Union and the United States. Space was the final frontier. Uncharted territory where two geopolitical giants were driven to be the first to plant their flag. That legacy doesn't just shape how we talk, it shapes what we do and how we design. From the way we source materials, to the way we prioritize stakeholders, to the regulations we create. But what does it mean to reframe our design thinking away from the legacy of colonialism? To help answer that question, we spoke with Dr. Bea Rodriguez-Franson, Imaginarium Director at Arizona State University's Next Lab, and an expert in design justice and decolonial design futures.
Decolonial design futures is about justice and transdisciplinary cross-sector collaboration. It is about remembering the past, understanding how it has influenced the present, and imagining bold, inclusive, and sustainable futures. In practice, this could mean thinking through how our choices impact communities from the top of the supply chain to the bottom. As an example, let's talk about Cobalt. If you're watching this video, chances are that you've used at least one device today that was made with cobalt. Cobalt is a type of metal used in rechargeable lithium-ion batteries, from your phone to your laptop, your new electric car. Cobalt alloys are also very useful for high-temperature situations like, say, landing a spacecraft on the moon. Case in point, India's lunar lander used cobalt. Most cobalt in the world is mined in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or the DRC, where industrial mining practices have devastated the landscape. Forests have been cut down, water sources contaminated with toxic chemicals, and entire villages displaced. And that's only the industrial side of cobalt extraction. Much of the cobalt is extracted through what is called artisanal mining, a pretty term used to describe an unbelievably awful practice. In the DRC, thousands of people, many of them children, work as independent miners, digging for cobalt with whatever tools they can find, if not with their bare hands. The conditions are incredibly dangerous, and without safety regulations, the Congolese people face tunnel collapses and harmful chemical exposure. Cobalt isn't the only mineral used in space technology with ethical problems. Tantalum, for example, is used in aerospace for thermal resistance. It's also mined in Central Africa, where the United Nations has linked its smuggling to deadly warfare in the Congo. When an American buys an electric car, we think of it as a win for sustainability. But halfway around the world, the consequences of mining the cobalt needed to make that car battery are devastating. Decolonial design futures means reflecting with people of diverse worldviews about the social and environmental impacts of our choices now and in the future, and then designing a way forward that minimizes harms and maximizes benefits. Not just the impacts we can see in front of us on our own communities or those of our customers, but on communities up and down the supply chain and on the consequences for our planet generations from now.
Solving the ethical implications of resource use is a complex task that goes beyond the responsibility of any one individual, but you might be surprised how often you can make choices to lessen the environmental and social impacts. So how do you do that? By thinking beyond the spec sheet. For example, Bea mentioned the conflict mineral tantalum. Capacitors made from tantalum have a high reliability and a long lifespan, both valuable for long-distance space travel. They can also handle extreme environments. And these are exactly the types of metrics we prioritize when designing for typical space engineering applications: weight, size, temperature resistance, and reliability. Tantalum offers good properties, but they don't tell you the full story. That's why we have to take into account social considerations, not as an afterthought, but as a part of the design equation. When selecting resources, don't just weigh the material, weigh the impact. Because remember, the space industry is currently scaling at a very fast pace. So even small decisions will grow to have significant impacts. That's why thinking through these choices now is so important. So rethinking space exploration from a decolonial perspective isn't just about how we behave if we ever encounter alien civilizations, though there's always the Star Trek's Prime Directive. It's about reframing space as a place of discovery, not domination. A place where we find new ways to collaborate, not conquer. Where we respect environments and harvest resources sustainably. And that means ethical sourcing of materials, knowing and understanding every step on the supply chain, and drawing on diverse and interdisciplinary perspectives in the design process. And yes, it means not using up all the ice on the dark side of the moon. Please like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more Space for Humans. Okay, well, if we didn't tell everybody what our generation was now. Wait, so when someone comes up to you and goes, "Hey kids, guess what the word of the day is? Spoon! Spoon!" You don't know what that is? Sorry. Hey kids, like and subscribe.